Hey there, welcome back to another video. This time around, it is my epic rant on the massive kaiju-sized diarrhea dump of epic proportions that is Reptilian, which is also known as Yonggary or Reptile. It doesn't matter what you call this piece of shit, it stinks to high heaven. This is, in all honesty, the worst kaiju film I've ever seen. And I know I haven't seen that many of these movies, but when your film is so fucking shitty, you're making me pine for Son of Godzilla, you really suck. Now, before I get around to destroying this film any further, I would like to give a special shout out to Bobby for requesting this video. And if there's another film, TV show, or topic that you would like to see me discuss in the future, feel free to donate to either my PayPal or to my Patreon. The link to both is in the video description down below, and I will try to get to your request as soon as I possibly can. Now, Reptilian is one of those films where in all honesty, the making of it or the backstory of the film is a lot more fascinating and worthwhile than the movie itself. It's a remake of sorts of another film of the same name, also called Yonggary, and this was clearly a film that was greenlit to try to take advantage of the recent success of the American version of Godzilla, as well as the upcoming Godzilla 2000. So there were a lot of investors, South Korean investors and producers, who felt like, hey, we can get in on that action too. And not only can we make a film that's successful for the South Korean or the Korean market, we can also make a movie that will leave a footprint and give us some good returns globally. But instead, it just wound up becoming a global fail and a gigantic flop. This was at the time the most expensive production in South Korean film history. It cost about $13 million to make, and if you've seen the film, it doesn't even look like it cost 3 million. In fact, there's a lot of shots in this that make it look like it cost 30 bucks, if even that. Just enough to rent the software in order to render the absolutely craptastic CGI. But what's honestly interesting is that when the film premiered in 1999 in South Korea, it was a completely different cut of the movie that has never been seen since. The version that we have today, the version that you can watch on streaming here in the United States, and the only other version that's ever been released is a different updated version that the producers of this decided to fund. And what's really hilarious is that they hype it up as if it's a new and improved version of Yonggary with new and improved visual effects and better effects. These effects are absolutely pathetic. This is honestly some of the most unconvincing CGI I've seen since Mortal Kombat Annihilation. And you have the people behind this movie hyping up these effects and acting like they're great, like they're fantastic, they're money well spent, and I am just completely beside myself. There's actually interviews with people who made this movie who are actually trying to argue this with a straight face. I honestly shudder to think about how bad the CGI was for the original cut of the film if this is supposedly the improved version when it comes to the film's visual effects. Now, it's not just the effects that are bad. I mean, there's so many other things about this film that are absolutely abysmal. And one of them is the direction. So the film is directed by Shim Hyung-rae, and this is the same hack who would go on and direct Dragon Wars, uh, uh, years after this film's release. I looked at his filmography in IMDb. There's not a single film above a 5 out of 10 on his resume. That's pretty bad. Like that is a really, really awful uh track record, to say the least. And this could arguably be some of his worst work, and that's saying a lot because he's a bad director overall. This is supposed to be a massive film in terms of its size and scale. $13 million production, the most money that was ever put into a South Korean film at the time. And it has production values and visuals that look like an episode of Power Rangers or VR Troopers or Big Bad Beetleborgs. Like it's really on that level in terms of the production value and the overall quality and the direction. The framing in this is an absolute disaster. There's numerous shots where people are just in the wrong sort of frame for the shot. Like you'll have people talking to one another, but then you'll clearly have something that's like in the way or obvious that's distracting you from the conversation. You'll have other moments where it seems like it's consistent in terms of the framing, but then it'll just randomly start doing something else from a different camera angle or a different perspective without any sort of logic behind it. It just randomly happens. There's not a good usage of zooms or pans. A lot of shots in this are very stiff, static, and stodgy, and just really dull. And the effect sequences and the various different action sequences, they just run together because there's no sense of style about them. It's just the bare minimum every time, and there's no variety. There's no instances where the director changes things up when it comes to how these scenes are shot. So none of these sequences with the creatures or with the military or anything really have any semblance of excitement or thrills because everything is just so played out. So yeah, the direction is not dynamic, it's not strong, it is very weak, very ineffective, very feeble. And then you have the screenplay by Park Hui-jun and another American writer. Like there's this other guy from the United States who also was involved with the screenplay. Uh, just looking to look him up here. Marty Poole. I think he was uncredited. And this screenplay, I shit you not, is not just full of completely obvious padding where you have scenes that just go on and on and on and on and are dragged out to an extreme degree in order to enable the film to just barely crack 90 minutes, but it also features some of the worst dialogue I have seen in a screenplay in a long fucking time. Here is some of the winning dialogue from a Reptilian. Compared to this guy, Godzilla is a pussy. Damn, this place is turning into a freaking prehistoric petting zoo. What? Your mama didn't give you enough attention when you were a tadpole? Take a bite out of this, Dino! If that thing were any meaner, it would be my wife. This is too weird. We got this crazy ass control freak professor, a fanatic old man who should be doing tours in a museum somewhere, a cute bitchy chick, more dead bodies than a Tarantino flick, and a 200 million-year-old big ass lizard. Is this intended to be a joke? Is this supposed to be a parody of kaiju films? What even is this shit? What in the fuck were these writers smoking or thinking when it comes to this fucking dialogue? And it doesn't stop there with the bad dialogue. Here's another golden effort by the writers. Do you smell it, Doctor? It smells old. Yeah, I smell it. It's this movie. It stinks worse than a rotting carcass of not just one uh lizard or one reptile. Let's just say about 100 of them. 100 rotting reptiles. That's how bad this film stinks. That's how just unbelievably brutal this movie is in terms of its assault on all of your senses. And if that isn't bad enough, I mean, you have moments in this that don't make any sense. Like there's an entire subplot that's literally just dropped and never brought up again involving this reporter guy named Bud Black who shows up and then disappears because apparently he was supposed to be involved in the final a few sequences in the film, but the production took so goddamn long to make that the actor had to leave to do other commitments. And so instead of like waiting for him to be ready or recasting the guy and shooting new scenes with a different actor, they just dropped the entire plot involving this character. It's not like if they had it in there, it would make the film any better, but it just makes it all the more incompetent when it comes to the script and the overall story. It opens up without any context whatsoever with these characters in a cave somewhere, and there's some kind of hieroglyphics. It's some kind of ancient alien tomb of some sort, and there is a bunch of people who get burned to death with an explosion that comes out of nowhere. There's uh, people who disappear but then reappear, and then you find out that the reptilian, the Yonggary, is this dead giant dinosaur that is reanimated by these aliens who I guess are using this giant dinosaur to destroy the earth. So then they can steal its resources. So now it's like a shitty version of Independence Day mixed with the 1998 Godzilla. And there are entire sequences early on that are just dealing with an incredibly boring dig in Southeast Asia with Dr. Campbell and Dr. Hughes. Well, I mean, Dr. Hughes is technically the good guy. The Dr. Campbell is the bad guy. He's a colleague of Dr. Hughes who decides to take over the project. And all these people, all these workers are just randomly dying because the dinosaur bones are coming to life and eating them, or they're dying due to the aliens and their shenanigans. And this scientist is covering up the crimes, threatening to deport them if they don't listen to him and his orders. And Hughes is somehow alive, even though it kind of looked like he died in the beginning of the movie, but somehow he survived. Or he's working with this other chick who's supposedly working with Dr. Campbell named Holly, and they decipher the hieroglyphics and determine that there's some plant that the aliens have with the dinosaur named Yonggary to attack the Earth and then destroy it with nuclear power, and then they would come in and just take all the resources, which I'm kind of like, okay, all right, you are going to have this giant dinosaur come down and attack a planet and then have him attack a nuclear power plant and cause a nuclear explosion and wipe out everybody on the planet, and somehow you're also going to be able to tap into the resources. Wouldn't the resources be corrupt and full of radiation and be useless? Like, I don't even understand these aliens plan. And on top of that, they mentioned that, but then they mentioned that there's this other alien that will show up and fight the other dinosaur, and I'm like, "What? Why would you even need that? What is even the point of that?" I guess it's a failsafe in case the dinosaur doesn't do what they are wanting it to do, because they can control Yonggary with a diamond on his forehead. I didn't know that's how diamonds work, but okay. They could control him with this diamond. And so, of course, the military, they attack Yonggary and they ultimately destroy the diamond. And now Yonggary is free from the aliens' control. So now Yonggary is now a good guy, despite the fact that he killed probably over half the people in the city when he attacked it earlier. Uh, but honestly, I'm pretty sure his body count isn't as high as the military. This script is so fucking shitty. There are numerous scenes where the Air Force has these dumbass pilots who are attacking Yonggary with their fighter jets, and they are firing multiple missiles at him, and they are missing him at point blank with heat seekers, with sidewinders, just completely flat out missing him altogether. It's interpreted later on that he has some sort of force field, but you don't see any force field. It literally just looks like the Air Force has employed the most pathetic, useless, terrible pilots known to man to try to stop this giant 50-foot tall dinosaur. Just there are so many scenes where they just miss him and blow up a building behind him. And you're like, wow. Like the first time you're like, okay. The second, third, fourth, fifth, sixth, seventh time, you're like, give me a fucking break. Who gave these pilots their license? Who trained these pilots? Ernest P. Worrell? Like, what the hell is this? And the dinosaur, okay, now it's a good guy. So then the aliens have this other plan where now this other creature, I guess, grows out of the ground and pops out in Psychor, and it's this dumpy looking monster that attacks Yonggary, and it looks like Yonggary's gonna lose, but of course the dumpy monster is a dumpy piece of shit, and Yonggary blows it up and cuts off its arm, eventually cuts off his head with his fireballs, and then I guess shoots a fireball into the severed head and causes it to explode. Honestly, it seems like it's a really easy monster to defeat. So much so that probably one of the jet pilot, or well, not jet pilot, the jetpack soldiers could probably have taken care of him. Speaking of jetpack soldiers, that's a thing in this screenplay. A bunch of soldiers flying around in jetpacks, giving you flashbacks to RoboCop 3, complete with the really bad dialogue and terrible attempts at one-liners. And there are so many scenes in this script that literally are just useless for the most part. Like I said, padding. All of the scenes with the military in this military base, it's only honestly a sequence that has any semblance of sense when it comes to working with the rest of the story, because that's the whole setup, is that, oh well, oh, they're going to drop the nuke and the military's watching what's going on and watching Yonggary and watching the aliens and watching the fight between Yonggary and Psychor, and uh once Yonggary wins, they have to get the abort code to the stealth bomber so the stealth bomber will not drop the bomb. And I'm like, you already dropped the bomb. It's called Reptilian. It's too late. But that's the only thing that makes any sense in terms of why any of these scenes are there, except for maybe this corrupt guy who works for some secret alien government side project who is withholding information from the military. there's just a lot about this script that is just really painfully padded. And there's bad dialogue. The characters all suck. There's not a single character in this that is likable or engaging or interesting or fun. I've never seen a film have so many explosions and it be so boring as a result. You don't have anyone to root for, anyone to care about. The dinosaur and the other creature, when they do show up, it's this really shitty, just eyesore CGI. It's so bad it makes your eyes bleed and roll back into your head and out your ass. And it's just one of those things where I don't even know why this was even made, what they were even thinking with this. Like, even by the end of the movie, the aliens are like, oh, yeah, we lost, but not yet. We'll be back. No, they're not. You won't be back. Yonggary is now a good guy. He's being taken to a deserted island, I guess, so he can be saved for later to save us from another dumpy, frumpy loser monster later on in a sequel. But that never happened. Thank God we didn't get any more of these shitty films. Yonggary in this is just a really bad knockoff of Godzilla, complete with the fire breath, but instead of it being cool looking, it's just lame fireballs. And there's really not much of a reason why he winds up becoming a good guy other than by chance. Oh, I guess, well, he's not in control of the diamond. The diamond isn't controlling him anymore. So now he's good. Why? So you can have the monster fight. That's the only reason. Doesn't make any sense why he's all of a sudden good. Uh, he's still a 50-foot tall dinosaur. So why wouldn't he just keep rampaging through the city? Because then you wouldn't have the rest of the movie. Well, that would be a good thing if he just rampaged through the city and killed everybody, because then the movie would have been over faster. So yeah, this script is it's it's abysmal. It's atrocious. It's a really bad screenplay. Like I said, the characterization is awful. The monster stuff is awful and not very creative or fun. The action, when it is there, explosion, 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 explosion. Building falling down, building falling down. Half the time it's the military blowing up buildings with the worst pilots ever. The other time it's Yonggary shooting lame fire breath. There's nothing about the film that is cool when it comes to the script. It's not cool, it's not fun, it's not interesting, it's boring, and it's pathetic and atrocious at the same time. I'll bring back that word that I used before. It is atrocious. It's another atrocious production. Now, the cast is not any better. This is a really, really awful cast. This is a really crappy cast. You have a cast that is fully compromised out of bit part actors. Actors who have never had a leading role in another film after this, and for a good reason, because they are the kind of actors who are at their best having no dialogue or just saying like one or two lines. The lead actor is Harrison Young, whose biggest claim to fame is playing the old version of Ryan from Saving Private Ryan. That's his biggest claim to fame, and when you see the film, you know why. You have Harrison Young, you have Donna Phillipson as Holly Davis, you have Richard B. Livingston as Dr. Campbell. Richard B. Livingston in particular is, if you take Jeffrey Combs and you take the worst performance that he's ever done in his entire career and you turn that up to 11. He's not a poor man's Jeffrey Combs. He's a homeless man's Jeffrey Combs. So fucking bad in this. I'm honestly Not exaggerating, when I say his acting in this is Tommy Wiseau levels of bad in The Room. The rest of the cast isn't much better. Bryant Wells is Parker, Brad Sergi is Bud Black, Wiley Pickett is Lieutenant O'Neill, Dan Cashman is General George Murdoch, Dennis Howard is General Jack Thomas, Matt Landers is General Howell. So the cast features not a single performer worth a shit who delivers even an average performance. Everyone is far below that. This is exactly how bad some of the acting and line delivery is in Reptilian. This can't be happening! No! It isn't real! The prophecy has been fulfilled! You're my creation! I made you! And then you have equally as bad and weak and just completely forgettable and not interesting at all cinematography by Kim An Hung, and just really egregious editing by Joe M. Pio, and the music by Jae Suong Woo is not something that makes you want to go woo. It makes you want to boo because it's just so bad. And then on top of that, you have the CGI, which it really is legitimately Mortal Kombat Annihilation levels of suck. And it's all the more frustrating because of the fact that they had practical effects. They shot an entire cut of this film that had practical effects for these creatures. But then they were like, nah, let's do really stupendously shitty CGI instead. And I'm like, why? You can actually see photos of these creature effects and the suit work, and it's not that bad. Would the film still suck if the creatures are practical? Yes, but it wouldn't be this unbelievably awful. Like it would just be a regular level of awful. I mean, this is the kind of film that if I did drink, I probably would pour myself a couple shots just so I could forget what I just witnessed. I mean, there is a sequence where one of the characters, the female scientist Holly, she just asks a random guy in the area if there's a place to eat, and then the response is bar. But not like there's a bar. Here's where the bar is. Here's the name of the bar. No, she's like, hey, is there anywhere to eat around here? Bar. Like that. That's exactly how that exchange happens in this movie. Yeah, I'd rather go to the nearest bar and drink my sorrows away than sit through this piece of shit again. When ever you touch a reptile, they tell you to wash your hands after because you could get salmonella. This is the cinematic equivalent of that. It's a film so bad and so toxic that it makes you want to wash your hands after. So I really don't have anything else to say about this piece of dinosaur sized dung uh other than thanks for watching this rant, and until next time, I'll see you later. See ya.